Hi friends, Cass here. I've never really been one to read a long list or a short list or even really a winner when it comes to literary prizes, but the International Booker Prize long list for 2025 was just released this week. And since I've been in the bookish world, I am feeling compelled to weigh in. Or not necessarily even weigh in, but I just want to be more in the loop about these things. And I'm really intrigued by the International Booker specifically. So I thought today we could take a look at the books that are on the International Booker long list for this year. And I don't plan on reading all of them because that's just not something that I feel I can commit to. But I would like to see if I can add any of these books to my TBR. I very briefly glanced at the list when they posted it on Instagram, and I've read one of them so far, and it was a 5-star read for me, so I'm feeling intrigued. Last year I read 2 books that were on the 2024 International Booker long list. Those were What I'd Rather Not Think About by Yente Postuma and The Details by Ia Genberg. I also read 1 book off of the just Booker Prize long list, and that was The Safekeep by E.O. Vanderwoden. And I have 2 books from the Booker long list on my TBR already, and those are Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck and Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. So I've been dipping my toes into the whole Booker thing. If you guys are interested in someone that usually does more Booker content, I would definitely check out Kieran at Kieran Reader. I'm not sure what her plans are for this year, but I know she's read through the long lists in the past and she does dedicated book reviews, and she posted a prediction for the International Booker long list a couple weeks ago. So definitely check her out if this is your kind of thing. And let's just talk about what the International Booker Prize is, because I feel like it's always something that I am hearing people talk about, but I've never actually really read about the prize itself. So it celebrates the best works of long-form fiction or collections of short stories translated into English and published in the UK or Ireland between May 1st, 2024 and April 30th, 2025. And it's judged by a panel. There were 154 books submitted by publishers, which is apparently the highest number since the prize was launched in 2016. I'm getting all of this from thebookerprizes.com if you'd like to follow along at home. The prize recognizes the vital work of translators with the 50,000 euro. Oh, pounds. Cut that. It says, the prize recognizes the vital work of translators with the £50,000 prize money divided equally, £25,000 for the author and £25,000 for the translator, or divided equally between multiple translators. And then there is some money given to the shortlisted titles as well. So the shortlist will be announced on April 8th, and then the winner will be announced on May 20th. So mark your calendars, I guess. That's cool. We love to see recognition for translators. I love reading translated books. So yeah, that is fun. We're gonna get right into it. Like I said, this is really just me seeing if I want to add any of these books to my TBR. These are not judgments on the books themselves or like their merit or anything. I'm just curious about what is on this long list, so don't take my word as final judgment. The first book that we have is A Leopard-Skin Hat by Anne Sayre, translated by Mark Hutchinson. It was originally written in French, and it says, the story of an intense friendship between the narrator and his close childhood friend, Fanny, who suffers from profound psychological disorders. I actually saw someone on Goodreads review this today, and they were talking about how it is kind of like a character study of this woman. It says, a series of short scenes paints the portrait of a strong-willed and tormented young woman battling many demons, and of the narrator's loving and anguished attachment to her. Sarah poignantly depicts the bewildering back and forth between hope and despair involved in such a relationship, while playfully calling into question the very form of the novel. We love a book that calls into question the form of the novel, I think. Sometimes I am finding that that can be a little bit hit or miss for me, but I love the idea of exploring that. So this does sound really interesting. There's a little bit more description on the Booker website about the book, but I'm not gonna sit here and like read the whole entire thing. This sounds intriguing. The review that I read on Goodreads also had me intrigued by this one, so I think that this will be added to the TBR. Next, we have On a Woman's Madness by Astrid Romer, translated by Lucy Scott, and this was originally written in Dutch. I am intrigued just from the title alone of this book. The description says, this classic of queer literature is electrifying today as it was when it first appeared in 1982. Oh, that's interesting. So it was republished in 2024. So I guess that qualifies for being on the list. I didn't know that either. I thought that they had to be like newly published. It tells the story of a courageous Black woman trying to live a life of her choosing. Okay, I am intrigued. The description says, when Nonka's abusive husband of just 9 days refuses her request for divorce, she flees her hometown in Suriname on South America's tropical northeastern coast for the capital city of Paramaribo. Unsettled and unsupported, her life in this new place is illuminated by romance and new freedoms, but also forever haunted by her past and society's expectations. Okay. Strikingly translated by Lucy Scott, Astrid Romer's classic queer novel is a tentpole of European and post-colonial literature. I am really intrigued by this one as well, so we're 2 for 2. There's a little bit more to the description, but I'm just gonna leave it there. Yeah, this sounds great. I feel like I don't read enough queer literature specifically. Yeah, I am gonna add this to the TBR as well. The next book on the long list is Heartlamp, written by Banu Mushtaq and translated by Deepa Bhashti. The original language is, how do you say this? I've never heard of this language before. Kannada. Spoken mainly in southwestern India, and I have never heard of that. That is interesting. The description says, in 12 stories, Banu Mushtaq exquisitely captures the everyday lives of women and girls in Muslim communities in southern India. Originally published in the Kannada language between 1990 and 2023, praised for their dry and gentle humor, these portraits of family and community tensions testify to Mushtaq's years as a journalist and lawyer, in which she tirelessly championed women's rights and protested all forms of caste and religious oppression. Written in a style at once witty, vivid, colloquial, moving, and excoriating, it's in her characters, the sparky children, the audacious grandmothers, the buffoonish Malvis and thug brothers, the oft hapless husbands, and the mothers above all, surviving their feelings at great cost, that Mushtaq emerges as an astonishing writer and observer of human nature, building disconcerting emotional heights out of a rich spoken style. Her opus has garnered both censure from conservative quarters as well as India's most prestigious literary awards. This is a collection sure to be read for years to come. There's so many new things that I am learning here with this book. I am intrigued by it, but I'm not a big short story person, and that is the one thing that is holding me back from this. I have made an effort this year to try and pick up some short story collections before bed, and the one that I picked up in February was Bad Behavior by Mary Gateskill, and I DNF'd it after 2 stories because I couldn't get into the story thing. Not saying that this book is like similar to that at all, but I just struggle with the short story form. But I am going to keep an eye out for this one, maybe get it from the library or something like that and give it a try, because yeah, this is a very interesting pick that I have not heard of until now. This is going better than I thought it would so far. I was thinking that I was not going to be interested in a lot of these. But the next book that we have is Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico, translated by Sophie Hughes, and it was originally published in Italian. The description says, a taut, spare sociological novel about the emptiness of contemporary existence, scathing and affecting in equal measure. Millennial expat couple Anna and Tom are living the dream in Berlin in a bright, affordable, plant-filled apartment. Okay, that's real. Do you see the plants? Their life as young digital creatives revolves around slow cooking, Danish furniture, sexual experimentation, and the city's 24-hour party scene, an ideal existence shared by an entire generation and tantalizingly lived out on social media. But beyond the images, dissatisfaction and ennui burgeon. Is that how you say that word? I think it is. Work becomes repetitive, friends move back home, have children, grow up, frustrated that their progressive politics amount to little more in practice than boycotting Uber, tipping in cash, or never eating tuna. Anna and Tom make a fruitless attempt at political activism. Feeling increasingly trapped in their picture-perfect life, the couple takes ever more radical steps in pursuit of an authenticity and a sense of purpose perennially beyond their grasp. Interesting as well. So the one thing that's kind of throwing me off about this is the city's 24-hour party scene. I don't know how much of the book necessarily focuses in on that, but I know from my experience with Good Girl earlier this year, it's not my favorite thing to read about. So I'm on the fence about this one, but it does sound very pertinent to, I think, what we are all going through today. So for that reason, I am still intrigued, but I would want to, I think, know a little bit more before I purchase it or pick it up or whatever. All right, next up we have Eurotrash, written by Christian Cracked. Sorry, Christian. Translated by Daniel Bowles. The original language is German. The description says, a jaded writer takes his spiky mother and her ill-gotten wealth on a road trip in this tragicomic and absurd semi-autobiographical novel. Realizing he and she are the very worst kind of people, a middle-aged man embarks on a dubious road trip through Switzerland with his 80-year-old mother, recently discharged from a mental institution. Traversing the country in a hired cab, they attempt to give away the wealth she has amassed from investing in the arms industry, but a fortune of such immensity is surprisingly hard to squander. Haunted in different ways by the figure of her father, an ardent supporter of Nazism, mother and son can no longer avoid delving into the darkest truths about their pasts. This one isn't really grabbing me in the way that the others were. Love the idea of wealth redistribution, but I just don't know if this plot would necessarily work for me. So I'm going to say that this one is not going to be added to the TBR as of right now. Next up, we have Under the Eye of the Big Bird, written by Hiromi Kawakami, translated by Asa Yoneda. Original language is Japanese. I think, do I have a book by Hiromi Kawakami on my bookshelves? Let's see. Ow. I do. I have Strange Weather in Tokyo by this author. Love this cover. Have not read this yet though. Let's see what this one is about. An inventive and immersive speculative novel about a future in which humans are nearing extinction, from the best-selling author of Strange Weather in Tokyo. All I had to do was scroll down to know that yes, I do have this on my shelves. And right off the bat, guys, I think that I am kind of into like a speculative, futuristic kind of like sci-fi adjacent thing. I have read I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. as well as On the Calculation of Volume, which we're going to talk about in this video because it is on the long list. Those were both 5-star reads for me, and I feel like they're also considered kind of like dystopian, speculative, like future sci-fi kind of things. So already I am intrigued by this because that is a type of thing that I've been enjoying way more than I ever thought that I would. The description goes on to say, in the distant future, humans are on the verge of extinction and have settled in small tribes across the planet under the observation and care of the mothers. Some children are made in factories from cells of rabbits and dolphins. Some live by getting nutrients from water and light like plants. The survival of the race depends on the interbreeding of these and other alien beings, but it is far from certain that connection, love, reproduction, and evolution will persist among the inhabitants of this faltering new world. Unfolding over geological eons under the eye of the big bird. Whenever I first saw the title of this, I thought that it was just Under the Eye of Big Bird, like the Sesame Street character, and I was like, that's interesting. But it is at once an astonishing vision of the end of our species as we know it, and a meditation on the qualities that, for better and worse, make us human. And that was, I think, one of the things that I really liked about I Who Have Never Known Men and On the Calculation of Volume, that kind of idea of like what traits make us human, and the way that when these characters are kind of removed from life as we know it, like, and they don't have love and connection and things like that, like seeing their humanity still was really interesting. So yeah, if you'd asked me a couple months ago whether this sounded like a book that I would want to read, I probably would have said no, but I am actually really intrigued by this currently. Oh, I forgot, I've read 2 of the books on this list. The next book is Hunchback by Saou Ichikawa, translated by Polly Barton. The original language is Japanese, and I actually just read this past weekend. Hogarth sent me a arc of it, and I decided to pick it up on a whim on Sunday morning. It is super short and like less than 100 pages, like super tiny. So I finished it in one morning in one sitting. I believe that it's releasing on March 4th or 11th in the US. I rated it 4 stars. I will be talking about it more in my February wrap-up that's coming out next week, but I'm just going to talk about this now since I have read it. I thought that this was really interesting. It is about a woman who has a congenital muscle disorder. So she is kind of bedridden, can't really speak, can't really move much on her own. But the description on the Booker website says she uses an electric wheelchair and a ventilator. So she's in this care home that was kind of like bequeathed to her by her parents. We don't really get too much backstory as far as her background, but she is like the owner of this care home that she is staying in. She writes like fantasies, like erotic fantasies online, and she tweets some like provocative stuff, and I don't want to give any spoilers away here, so let me just double check that I'm not going to spoil anything. Okay, yeah, so she has an interaction with a male caregiver, and he has kind of seen the things that she puts on the internet, and it changes their relationship. We'll just say that. I thought that it was interesting. It wasn't like my favorite thing that I've ever read, but I really appreciate how much the author was able to do in so few pages. She's asking a lot of really big questions about disability and class and reproductive rights and like bodily autonomy. And it was just really unique. I don't think that I've ever read anything quite like it. I think that she did a really good job of balancing humor with the ways that the narrator was truly struggling. Lots of big questions. I would love to see some of them explored in a bit more of like a long form kind of deal. And yeah, it's just so short. I think it's worth picking up if it sounds remotely interesting to you. It was an enjoyable reading experience. Next we have Small Boat, written by Vincent Delecroix, translated by Helen Stevenson, originally published in French. The description says, November 2021, an inflatable dinghy carrying migrants from France to the UK capsizes in the channel, causing the deaths of 27 people on board. How and why did it happen? Despite receiving numerous calls for help, the French authorities wrongly told the migrants they were in British waters and had to call the British authorities for help. By the time rescue vessels arrived on the scene, all but 2 of the migrants had died. The narrator Delecroix's fictional account of the events is the woman who took the calls. Ooh, that's interesting. Accused of failing in her duty, she refuses to be held more responsible than others for this disaster. Why should she be more responsible than the sea, than the war, than the crises behind these tragedies? A shocking moral tale of our times, Small Boat reminds us of the power of fiction to illuminate our darkest crimes. I think that's a really interesting perspective to be reading from, the perspective of the woman that took the calls for help. I feel like this would be another library pickup for me, but I am interested in this one as well. Guys, should I just read the long list? There's only been one that I haven't really been super interested in. The next book is Reservoir Bitches, written by Dahlia de la Cerda, translated by Julia Sanches and Heather Cleary. This was originally published in Spanish. The description says, life's a bitch, that's why you've got to rattle her cage, even if she's foaming at the mouth. A linked short story collection of gritty, streetwise, and wickedly funny fiction from Mexico. In the linked stories of Reservoir... why can I not say this title? In the linked stories of Reservoir Bitches, 13 Mexican women prod the bitch that is life as they fight, so cheat, cry, and lie their way through their tangled circumstances. From the all-powerful daughter of a cartel boss to the victim of transfemicide, from a house full of spinster seamstresses to a socialite who supports her politician husband by faking indigenous roots, these women spit on their reduction and invent new ways to survive, telling their stories in bold, unapologetic voices. So, same kind of thing here. My only apprehension with this is my struggles with short story collection. This does say that it is a linked story collection though, so I think that if there is that kind of like common thread within a collection or like some sort of connection between all of them, that could work for me a little bit more. Next up, we have Solenoid by Mircea Cărtărescu, translated by Sean Cotter. This was originally published in Romanian. Solenoid submerges us in the Solenoid submerges us in the mundane details of a diarist's life and then spirals into a bizarre existential account of history, philosophy, and mathematics. The first half is intriguing me, the second half is kind of scaring me in that description. Grounded in the reality of communist Romania, the novel grapples with frightening healthcare, the absurdities of the education system, and the struggles of family life while investigating other universes and forking paths. In a surreal journey like no other, we visit a tuberculosis preventorium, an anti-death protest movement, a society of dream investigators, and a minuscule world of dust mites living on a microscope slide. Combining fiction and history with autobiography, the book is partly based on the author's experiences as a teacher. Solenoid searches for escape routes through the alternate dimensions of life and art as various monstrous realities erupt within the present. This one sounds a little bit too intimidating for me. I feel like I would be a bit overwhelmed by this one personally. Yeah, I don't know about this one. I think that this might be where I cut things off. I feel like this one is really long too. I feel like I've seen someone talk about it at some point. Or am I thinking of a different book? Oh yeah, it's 840 pages. I don't know if I can do that, guys. Sorry. That's giving me like the same vibes. Not actually, but just like I feel like I would have the same reaction to that book as I did with The Last Samurai by Helen DeWitt, which is also, I don't think it was quite 840 pages. I think it was like 500 or 600, but it was a lot. And that's kind of the vibes that I'm getting from Solenoid as well. The next book is There's a Monster Behind the Door by Gaëlle Bélem, translated by Karen Fleetwood and Laëtitia Saint-Loubert. The original language is French. I have been taking Duolingo French lessons for I think like 142 or 143 days now, guys, and my French accent, I hate having to talk to the frickin' owl because I am so bad at speaking it. I can like read it and like translate it well enough, but trying to say the words is so bad for me. The description of this one says, in 1980s reunion, monsters lurk beneath the surface of vibrant island life, ready to pounce at the slightest disturbance. La Réunion in the 1980s, a place of high unemployment and low expectations, the legacy of post-colonialism. Here, a little girl makes a bid for escape from her sadistic parents' reign of terror and turns to school for salvation. The name I'm sorry. I can't do it. The name Des Saints is one to reckon with. A bombastic, violent, and increasingly dangerous clan. Little do they know that their downfall is being chronicled by one of their own. Rich in the history of the island's customs and superstition and driven by a wild, offbeat humor, this picaresque pronunciation is really, we're struggling today. This picaresque tale manages to satirize the very notion of freedom available in this French territory, and perhaps even the act of writing itself and where it might lead you. I'm feeling a little bit confused by the description of this one. What is La Réunion? Guys, am I an idiot? It's a French department in the Indian Ocean. Okay. Once again, learning things, living and learning. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the other descriptions of the other books were just like a little bit more straightforward, but this is not really grabbing me currently. I feel like I'd need to hear someone talk about it or like read a review. Okay, we're on the second and last book, and this is a book that I have read, and that is On the Calculation of Volume 1 by Solvej Balle. Translated by Barbara J. Haveland. Original language is Danish. This was a 5-star read for me, you guys. I just read it this month and I was really blown away by it. I'm so happy that I picked it up. Jalen from the Bar in the Bookcase had this book kind of sneak into his top 10 of 2024 reading list, favorites, whatever. And that convinced me to pick this up and like move it to the top of my priorities. It was really funny because I actually had a copy like on hold at the library and it was in transit, and I ended up just purchasing a copy of it. And yeah, I didn't want to wait for it to come in from the library. And I'm really glad that I purchased a copy of this book, because I loved it. I am so excited to read the other books in this series. It is going to be a septology, so there's going to be 7 books. The first 2 have been translated into English so far, and the author is still like writing them. I think she might be on like the 4th or the 5th one that have been like released in Danish so far, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, series is not usually something that I go for either, so I was really surprised by my decision to pick this up. This is another one that like we're gonna bring up I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman again, because I feel like if you like that book, you will like this book, and I've seen a lot of hype for I Who Have Never Known Men, so I know a lot of you like it. I feel like the vibes are similarly very haunting, and there's a lot of unexplained things, and they're kind of that sci-fi adjacent experience, but they're still very beautifully written. Both of them also explore the urge that we have to document our experiences, even if it's only for ourselves, and they also talk about the comfort that writing can bring. So I love that about both of those books. But On the Calculation of Volume specifically follows a woman named Tara, unsure. She's a bookseller who is repeating November 18th for an entire year. It's the same day over and over again. She's aware that it's happening, but nobody else is. She continuously is telling her husband what is going on, and he believes her, but whenever they pass into like the new day, his memory basically wipes, and he is like, why are you here? You're supposed to be on this trip. And he doesn't know that this day is repeating. It's his first time every time. So eventually she decides that she doesn't want to keep trying to explain this to him. She decides to live on her own, and she's kind of trying to figure out what happened and how she can fix it. And yeah, I think that she just did so much with this in, once again, a very short amount of pages. She is exploring loneliness, love, mundanity, memory, time, history, the will to survive, writing like we talked about. I could even see this series kind of digging deeper into consumption and climate change, just because of the food situation in the book and the way that like replenishing works, if you will. Translation was really good. The prose was the kind of like straightforward style that I really love. And yeah, this is the one book that I was like, I hope that this makes the long list for the International Booker, and it did, and I'm so happy because I loved it. I can wholeheartedly sign off on this one. Please read it. It's so good. Okay, we're on our final book here, guys. This was a lot more successful than I thought that it was going to be. The final book on the list is The Book of Disappearance by Ibtisam Azem, translated by Sinan Antoon. The original language was Arabic. And the description says, what if all the Palestinians in Israel simply disappeared one day? What would happen next? How would Israelis react? These unsettling questions are posed in this powerfully imaginative novel. Allah is haunted by his grandmother's memories of being displaced from Jaffa and becoming a refugee in her homeland after the Nakba. Ariel, Allah's neighbor and friend, is a liberal Zionist, critical of the military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, yet faithful to the project of Israel. When he wakes up one morning to find that all Palestinians have suddenly vanished, Ariel begins searching for clues to the secret of their collective disappearance. That search and Ariel's reactions to it intimately revealed the fissures at the heart of the Palestinian question. Between the stories of Allah and Ariel are the people of Jaffa and Tel Aviv, cafe patrons, radio commentators, flower cutters, against whose ordinary lives these fissures and questions play out. Spare yet evocative, intensely intelligent in its interplay of perspectives, The Book of Disappearance, which was critically acclaimed in its original Arabic edition, is an unforgettable glimpse into contemporary Palestine as it grapples with both the memory of loss and the loss of memory. I am intrigued by this one. I've not read too much Palestinian literature, and I would like to read more, and this feels like a very interesting one to add to the list. So yeah, I am really interested in this. All right, guys, that's gonna be it for me today. I've got 8 books that I need to put on my TBR. I've read 2 of the books on the list, so that leaves us with only 3 books that I'm like not super feeling. So yeah, I feel like this was a fun exercise. I really, like, even last year hadn't gone through and like looked at the list as a whole. So yeah, I don't know that I will do any like dedicated Booker videos. I definitely will not be getting to all of these before the shortlist or even the winner is announced, but I am gonna add them, and yeah, we'll see if I pick any of these up this year. But really interesting selections, and yeah, I'm really happy that I decided to go through and do this. Let me know if any of these books are on your TBR or if you've read any of them already. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, if you can make a case for one of the ones that I wasn't so taken by, I would love to hear it. And yeah, I will talk to you guys in the next one, in the February wrap up. Bye.